So let's talk a little bit about the ICAO test. Now, seeing how it is, I'm going to pass through some exercises, and I'm going to start with a question that they've been asking quite a lot nowadays. They've been asking this one: what was the most important piece of advice that you were given before your check ride? I'm going to share my screen here so everybody understands the question. Let me share my screen. Okay, so that question that I'm about to show it here, that one. Okay. What was the most important piece of advice you were given before a check ride? Now, this question immediately puts you to talk about yourself and the past. That's usually how it is in the ICAO test. They have 3 questions in part 1. They can extend a little bit because if your answers are short, they might go a little beyond. But, you know, initially the intention is to have you answering 3 questions. 1 about the past, so they see how you talk in terms of the past tense. 1 about your opinions on something, and 1 about the future, okay? So this first one here has been causing a little bit of trouble because of the word advice and how you address it. What's the most important piece of advice that you were given before a check ride? I don't know if you guys know, but the word advice has no plural, okay? This is what we call a mass noun in English. So you cannot talk about advice from a regular, a normal perspective. You cannot say, I received a very important advice, not even like this in singular. If you say an advice, that means 1. It's actually wrong in terms of grammar. It's not a big mistake because when you think about it, it's probably gonna prevent you from passing with level 5, perhaps, if you do occasionally make mistakes like that. But advice has no plural. It's like fire, it's like smoke. It's considered a mass noun. Now, for the mass nouns, like fire and smoke, is easy for us to understand because they are like, you know, a mass. So like a volume, like if you talk about smoke, right? Switching to Portuguese really fast here to make sure everybody's understanding. Se você pensar em fumaça, em fogo, aquilo não tem quantificação, é um volume. Mas em inglês, a gente tem algumas palavras que se comportam da mesma forma gramaticalmente, que não são físicas, não são coisas de massa físicas, mas eles enxergam da mesma maneira, como categorias. É o caso de advice. It's the case for music as well. I hope the AI is able to understand when I switch between languages like this. Tomara que a inteligência artificial entenda minhas mudanças aqui de inglês para português. So advice has no plural. So if you talk about advice, you have to answer like generically, like I received some advice or a lot of advice. It's fine. But if you talk about a number, if you talk about it precisely, you have to say, let's say countable, like many, you're going to say many pieces of advice. I received 2 pieces of advice or 1 piece of advice. So you're going to talk about advice as if you talk about it in piece or pieces of advice, okay? The same thing applies to other words as well. So I'm going to cover them really fast. Information works the same way. Information is a mass noun. So no informations, there's no plural. Equipment, that's important for us as well. So there's no, oh, I have a failure with 2 equipments on board. No, with 2 pieces of equipment or with a piece of equipment, or I lost some equipment, generic, okay? So equipment, advice, information, and evidence. Evidence is also important for us, and it's a little weird. All right, so who's gonna try to answer this question here? I want you guys to interact with me. I'm talking a lot by myself. Is anybody willing to practice a little bit? Raise your hand with the button over here, or maybe pass a message. Let me check if you guys are sending messages on the chat that I'm not seeing. Captions are not appearing in Zoom. I think it's because now I'm sharing my screen, probably. But before that, it was. So who's going to answer this question? Pass a message over there. Come on, be brave. Someone. Odair said, Odair, can you see the captions now or not? Anyways, no one is
caption is working. You have to turn it on. Yeah.
All right, 1 new message. Let's go. Who said that? No, that's Felipe like some minutes ago. Anyway, so I'm going to give you guys some ideas to answer here. Advice. What was the most important piece of advice? Think about the main rules in aviation, the golden rules that we have. So, for instance, you could say that you received many different pieces of advice. So they see you know how to use the word advice in the mess now. But one that stuck, one piece of advice that really stuck with me, that I really consider the most important one, is actually to always do things with a certain amount of priority. It is basically encompassed on the idea to aviate, navigate, communicate, to do things with that priority. Aviate, navigate, communicate. So if you use something like that, you will be able to provide a good answer, and also to put yourself in the reflective stance that I said before. You don't want to talk fast, so you want to talk slowly because it's the first question. You want to take some time to think about things and to have your fluency going and, you know, starting up. So try to talk slowly and say, well, let me think about it. I received so many pieces of advice that it's a little hard to find one specific piece of advice that I consider the most important one before a check, right? Yeah, maybe the golden rule of aviation, to aviate, navigate, communicate. I think this one was very, very nice. Now, I don't want everybody to make the same answer, okay, guys? So don't do exactly the same one. Think about other golden rules in aviation as well. Maybe you can think about, I don't know, trying to always follow the checklists, always follow, never fly when the weather is not ideal for the type of flight you're performing. Yeah. So go for weather, go for inspections and standards. Standards is a very, very common topic for any answer. Like you're going to see that in many of these answers, one of the most important tactic is to have always a speech, an answer that you give that goes towards the same idea of talking about the standards and how you have to follow the QRH and the, you know, quick reference book, or the quick reference handbook, or maybe you talk a little bit about following the manuals, the standards, the operational procedures, the standard operational procedures, SOP. So if you add that to your answers, you're going to see that this is like a wild card type of answer. You can use it all the time, okay? So the next question that I want to cover with you that is very common, but it doesn't have anything so weird as the word advice, is that one here. What is the most critical phase of a flight? That one is like always in the test nowadays. They've been asking this one quite a lot. What is the most important critical phase of the flight? Now, what is important here with this one? Well, this one has a very simple answer, right? You just say what phase of the flight. You say, I don't know, landing, takeoff. I think it's takeoff because the aircraft is heavy, the runway is behind, and you're still, you know, acquiring speed and altitude. So the thing here is that maybe you want to provide just a very short answer, and that's not what they want on the ICAO test. I mean, it's implied that because this is an oral test, you have to talk, right? So you don't want to make short answers to the point that you just say, well, the landing phase of the flight is the most critical. If you do that, it's okay-ish. I mean, they're gonna ask you some other questions. They're gonna ask you secondary questions, and sometimes they could be very much more difficult. Like this one here. As a secondary question, they might ask, how can a pilot increase situational awareness during this phase? And then some pilots, they don't even know what the guy means with situational awareness because the word is so far away from the word that we have in Portuguese, right? Situational awareness is consciência situacional. And a lot of times Brazilian pilots, they think that, you know, consciência situacional is going to be something like conscious situation, conscious, whatever. It's actually situational awareness, because situational becomes an adjective, so it comes first. Awareness is a totally different word in terms of syntax than it is to say conscience, right? So we use a different word in English. So if you make short answers, you take the risk of perhaps the next answer in the next question being more difficult. So that is the case with this question here. For many of my students, they told me about this. I have several feedback forms that I get from the test, and this is something that has been going on. They ask you, what is the most critical phase of the flight? And you say, well, the landing. Okay, and tell me how can, so it becomes more difficult. How can the pilot decrease the situational awareness during this phase? All right, guys, so keep it simple, but not short. That's another thing that if you guys want to take notes about that. Keep it simple, but not too short. It could be short sometimes, you might not have much to say and you might prefer to answer more questions than to try to talk when you don't have things to say. So it could be short. So what you should actually remember as a principle is keep it simple, but not too short. And what is too short? Too short is when you don't sound as if you are able to speak things in an oral test, right? You don't want to be evasive, okay? Next question that I have here for you guys that has been in the ICAO test quite a lot. What could be improved in aviation in terms of communication? Well, that one here is for the future, right? They ask questions like that. They want you to talk about the future. They ask you what is going to change. And usually it's about the aviation market. Sometimes it's about the aviation equipment, maybe pieces of equipment like specific ones, like perhaps communication equipment, like radio, voice and text messages, things like that. This one here, what could be improved in aviation in terms of communication? Again, you're talking about the future now. So one thing that you can always use is to talk about how difficult it is for you to come with ideas and opinions about the future, about a topic that you perhaps never thought much about it, right? So one thing you can do is you already start padding up your answer. What is to pad up? Pad up in Portuguese would be estofar, né? Você preencher a sua resposta. So you're going to pad up your answer with some expressions and some, not expressions only, but with some sentences which will contain expressions to say, well, it's a little hard for me to talk about the future because quite honestly, I think I never really thought about this topic specifically. Let me see. It's not about my English level. It's just that I don't think I have many opinions about this, but probably the communication will continue to be via the radio because we use the radio for a long time. But I guess that in certain flight routes, we're going to see CPDLC, controller pilot data link, to be more and more used. I think that text messages can coexist with voice messages. So perhaps in the future, we're going to have more text messages capabilities throughout many different routes. And that's what I think. But I'm really afraid that I don't have much to talk about it because I never really thought much about this. So you see, I would say that maybe 50% or more of my answer was actually me saying that it's hard to talk about the future. I'm going to swap to Portuguese again, just to make sure everybody understood that, because I'm kind of finishing with part 1 questions that I wanted to cover. Pessoal, passando para português aqui. Então, que fique claro aqui, ó, na parte 1, eu quero que vocês lembrem que é sobre o inglês. Por isso cabem estratégias onde você dá aquela embromada. Deixa eu tirar o captions aqui, que ele vai ficar doidinho agora comigo falando português. I think that I can actually switch it to Portuguese, maybe. Yeah. Mudar para português as legendas aqui pelo Zoom. Deixa eu passar para minha tela inteira também. Estão me vendo aí na tela toda agora, acredito, né? Então, pessoal, olha só. Uma coisa que eu acho que é importante vocês perceberem é que durante a prova, a gente realmente vai ter essa possibilidade de dar uma enrolada, tá? Ah, não está aparecendo as captions. Pessoal, acho que as captions, então, talvez elas sejam, né, as legendas, talvez elas sejam só para cada usuário. Dê uma olhada aí depois, se vocês na parte da barra do Zoom aqui, se vocês têm a possibilidade.
Tem que ligar, Pop, tem que ligar a legenda.
Captions. No meu Zoom, ele é dos mais da direita. Acho que vocês têm que habilitar aí, porque eu habilitei o meu aqui, para mim ele aparece. Só que agora eu estou falando português, eu vou até mudar aqui. Aí ele vai aparecer em português. Eu só não sei se vai aparecer para todo mundo.
Sim,
Você falar,
aparece.
está aparecendo para mim aqui.
Tá aparecendo, só que tem que
Ó,
habilitar.
alguém falou que sim, aparece, está aparecendo. Beleza. Só habilitar. Beleza. Valeu, Rodrigo Saragô. Então, pessoal, nessa parte da prova e em todas as outras, lembre, isso aqui é uma prova oral. Acima de tudo, ele está avaliando como você fala inglês. Claro, tem um tanto de inglês de aviação, no sentido de vocabulário e tal, você vai ter que entender quando ele mencionar um bird strike, você não vai poder achar que é um tail strike, sei lá. Então, óbvio que ele vai testar o seu conhecimento técnico em algum nível, mas especialmente para quem já está com a prova ali manjada, para você melhorar. Ah, vocês estão falando no microfone e não estão ouvindo. Deixa eu ver aqui. Pode ser um problema aqui, então. Deixa eu ver. O pessoal tem pergunta bem que eu estou me sentindo sozinho aqui. Obrigado por avisar aqui no chat. Deixa eu ver. Falem aí para eu ver se eu estou ouvindo vocês agora.
Tá ouvindo?
Ah, garoto, agora sim. Obrigado, Dan.
Agora sim.
Teste.
Ah,
Tem alguma
Alô,
pergunta? Claro,
testando
ouvindo todo
dois.
mundo. Foi um erro meu aqui. Eu conectei o fone depois de logar e eu não estava ouvindo. Mas vocês têm ainda aí as perguntas em mente ou a interação que vocês queriam fazer ainda está fresca na memória?
Sim, tá tudo certo.
Tá, mas se tiver alguma pergunta aí que guardou, que lembrar, passa aí, tá? Que
Eu
eu
acho que naquela
tô
parte 2 ali, pô, que você falou que é uma
na segunda
pergunta,
questão.
uma segunda questão que é uma resposta curta lá, né?
Uhum,
Faz do voo que é mais crítica, fala,
sim,
é a decolagem. Porque,
uhum,
acho que um porquê ali
isso.
explica a situação, né?
Exato. Então, essa é uma coisa que você tem que usar, que é mais comum é para quem é mais, qual é o contrário de introspectivo? Sei lá, extrospectivo, não sei. Para quem é mais expansivo, vai. Como eu sou falante,
Extrovertido, extrovertido.
extrovertido. Obrigado, extrovertido. Para quem é mais extrovertido, a gente tem a capacidade de fazer isso mais fácil, né? Disso acontecer. Mas basicamente, se você explica um pouco tudo aquilo que você fala, você já consegue expandir, né? Aquilo que você só mencionou, você explica. Uma coisa que eu digo para manter em mente quando você faz a prova, caso você tenha dificuldade em fazer isso, né? Em elaborar um pouco mais, imagina que você está conversando com um adolescente que gosta de aviação. Então, tudo que você menciona, você tem que explicar. Óbvio que a gente sabe que não é o caso, a gente está falando com o avaliador da ICAO ali, da ANAC, tem um controlador observando a prova, e, e aquela pessoa aplica prova há muito tempo e tal, então você sabe que você não precisa explicar para ela, por exemplo, o que é um go-around. Mas se você imagina que você precisa, se você finge que precisa, você expande um pouco. Então, por exemplo, você vai mencionar nesse caso the takeoff, né? A decolagem. Sei lá, what is the most critical phase of a flight in your opinion? In my opinion, is the takeoff. And I would say that, or because. Às vezes é legal usar umas expressões tipo I would say that, né? Eu diria isso em vez de só um because, para ficar mais elaborado. I would say that because the takeoff is the part of the flight in which the aircraft is heavier, the engines are running just for a short amount of time, so it's more likely that you could have problems. Então, a ideia de você conseguir explicar um pouco aquilo que você fala, ela fica facilitada se você realmente, agora a captions aqui para mim ficou maluca, porque eu fui pro português. Então, o que acontece? Ela vai ficar, a sua resposta mais aberta, tá? Agora, nem sempre você tem também como ficar dando voltas ad eternum ali, ao infinito, tá? Então, nesses casos, às vezes também aceita que vai vir uma segunda pergunta, né? Não fica embromando também ao ponto de você não ter o que falar e ficar quebrando sua fluência, tá? Isso é uma coisa que tem que realmente ponderar ali na hora, perceber. Alguém mais tem alguma pergunta sobre parte um aí? Ou sobre alguma das questões que a gente cobriu, que eu não estava ouvindo o pessoal?
sobre a velocidade da fala, Alex,
Hum,
lembrar assim que às vezes a gente no começo, quando tem uma pergunta que a gente está confortável, a gente fala mais rápido. Aí vem uma pergunta que a gente não está tão habituado, aí já começa a falar mais devagar, já varia bastante, né? Então é bom
sim,
manter sempre o mesmo ritmo ali desde o começo, né? De preferência um
sim.
pouco mais devagar, se a pessoa não está tão assim seguro, né?
Isso. E isso é mais normal durante o começo da prova, né? Então eu diria que no começo da prova, de maneira geral, a não ser que a pessoa seja realmente muito fluente, o ideal é ela começar ali aquecendo os motores, né? E para isso, aí entra aquela técnica ali que eu acho que eu mencionei de você adotar uma postura reflexiva. Se você notar em podcast, que é um ótimo hábito para você melhorar a sua fluência e tal, você vai ver que muitas vezes as pessoas estão falando sobre temas de maneira reflexiva. As perguntas num podcast bom normalmente levam o interlocutor ali a refletir enquanto ele responde, a pensar. E isso combina com uma espécie, um tipo de fala mais lento, que é o que eu estou tendo agora, né? Enquanto você tenta explicar uma coisa um pouco mais, sei lá, aprofundada, com uma explicação que você está realmente fazendo enquanto responde, você consegue adequar isso combinar isso com um ritmo de fala mais lento, tá? Então, isso é importante, porque se você quiser ter resposta, isso é uma coisa que acontece, tá, pessoal? Você, por exemplo, estudou bem para a prova ICAO na tua cabeça, aí você estudou lá um monte de respostinha pronta, sei lá, ou você pegou, o Pope falou que cai aqui o advice que eu recebi antes do check ride, ou às vezes do solo flight, falou que cai isso e aquilo. Aí você pega as coisas ali que a gente está cobrindo e que eu sempre cubro com meus alunos que caem, e você vai para coisa ali pensando, beleza, vou ter a resposta aqui. In my opinion, the most important thing about the check ride and the piece of advice that you receive before you go. Aí você tenta responder de uma maneira que você parece um livro falando. Primeiro que não fica natural normalmente. Segundo que a chance de você parecer um cara que sabe muito sobre aquilo, mas fala mal, é enorme. E na prova é melhor o contrário. É melhor você parecer que sabe pouco e fala bem do que você parecer que sabe muito e fala mal, tá? Então, principalmente no começo, não cai na cilada de falar, beleza, perguntou aquilo que eu tenho a resposta pronta. Aí você vomita aquele negócio de uma vez assim, e você só caminha de trava em trava. Você, em vez de aproveitar que você tinha bastante coisa para falar ali, soltar de uma maneira cadenciada, bem pontuada, né, um discurso com oratória boa. Cara, oratória, pessoal, eu costumo dizer que é a 7ª nota da prova ICAO, que a prova ICAO tem 6, né? Tem 6 critérios de avaliação. Se eu tentar citar aqui, eu sempre vou esquecer um de cabeça, assim, né? Mas é pronúncia, fluência, compreensão, vocabulário, gramática e interação. Acho que eu acertei todos aqui. Bom, a interação, na minha opinião, ela é a fluência, tá? Ali camuflada. Mas se não for, eu diria que fluência seria a 7ª nota. Desculpa, fluência não, oratória. A oratória, ela é muito importante. A gente está falando de uma prova oral. E a oratória, ela não é necessariamente a mesma para todo mundo, né? Sei lá, alguém pode ser muito eloquente, ter uma baita oratória, alguém pode ter uma boa oratória considerando que a personalidade é um pouco menos expansiva, menos extrovertida, como a gente falou. E aí a oratória adequada àquilo vai funcionar. Qual a oratória, digamos, um facilitador de oratória? Essa postura reflexiva. Então o cara te perguntou ali, what is the most critical phase of a flight? Em vez de sair, the most critical phase of the flight, in my opinion, is the takeoff procedure because the aircraft is heavy, the runway is behind you, you are low, you are slow, and... Não. Em vez de tentar responder assim, se você for ICAO 6, como eu sou, talvez beleza, mas se não é o caso, solta assim, well, let me think about that. Most important critical phase of the flight. Já dá uma parafraseada, pensativa. A entonação convence. Aí você vai falando devagar, tá? Isso vai funcionar em outras partes da prova também. Vamos para frente que a gente cobre elas.
No
Alguém mais tem alguma questão?
caso,
Posso pular?
no
Vai lá, fala aí.
caso, parafrasear do jeito que você falou, é como se fosse um robô falando, repetindo a frase, não seria tão viável como tipo falar de um jeito mais reflexivo, parafraseando.
Certamente vai ter, se você parafrasear meio robotizado, o avaliador vai perceber você como uma pessoa menos fluente, tá? A
Só do jeito
sua
que tá querendo encher linguiça, né, para deixar a frase
É,
maior.
Você pode parafrasear, é bom parafrasear, mas é bom você parafrasear de uma forma que não parece que você está parafraseando para encher
Sim.
linguiça. Percebe? É tudo cheio de nuance por ser uma prova oral, né? Você quer ter coisas prontas, preparadas, mas você não quer de jeito nenhum que elas pareçam prontas e preparadas. Você quer ter uma resposta maravilhosa para algo, você pode praticar, mas você sempre tem que praticar pensando, ela tem que soar natural. A prova oral não é escrita. Se fosse escrita, eu não sei quantas vezes você apagou e escreveu de novo aquela coisa ali, tá? A vírgula estando no lugar certo, tá ótimo. Mas na prova oral, não. Na prova oral, a forma que você entrega, ela é direta e imediata. E ela vai contar muito, muito mesmo. Eu vou exemplificar isso na parte 2 para vocês também, porque é o mesmo tipo de tática ali que a gente tem, essa de oratória. Vai ser uma outra oratória na parte 2, abre outras possibilidades de oratória. A gente está no rádio, né? Então você vai poder fazer uma coisa concisa, simples, mas vai funcionar. E aí, em outras etapas, cada etapa você pode usar oratórias mais pertinentes. Ok? Vamos para a parte 2, então. Alguém mais quer fazer alguma colocação aqui sobre a parte 1? Podemos pular.
Alex,
Diga aí.
você falou da questão aí de quando está escrevendo, apaga, corrige. Na prova a gente pode corrigir. Mas qual que é a maneira correta de fazer uma correção? Pede um
Boa.
desculpa e for correction, como que é?
Excelente pergunta, Odair. Obrigado pela pergunta, que essa é uma coisa importante também como estratégia aqui. Cara, você está conversando, então você tem milhares de maneiras de fazer a sua correção. Uma delas você pode falar, por exemplo, eu adoro, essa aqui eu acho a melhor, tá? Better saying. Quando você usa o better saying, você sequer diz que você errou. Se você tiver errado, tá dito que você errou. Se você não tiver, você só está se otimizando ali no que você diz, tá? Melhor dizendo, better saying, aí você pode começar de novo. Pode ser outra coisa? Pode, sei lá, o cara tá falando, in my opinion, the worst part, the most critical phase of the flight is the cruise flight. Oh, sorry, what I mean is that is the takeoff. Or, sorry, let me say it again. Sorry, better saying, tá? Então tem várias opções. Na parte 2 já vai mudar, então já adianto o seguinte, na parte 2, quando você tá no rádio, cara, você pode falar em inglês geral? Pode, deve? Não. Na prova, tem problema? Não, se você fizer tudo certo, mas é mais difícil. Então, se você for fraseológico, é melhor. Então, se você precisasse corrigir no meio de um... Apertou o PTT ali, tá falando? Eu falo, finge que a caneta é o PTT aqui. Você vai falar, pá, aperta aqui. Então, você vai passar sua mensagem, ela já tá mais ou menos pronta na cabeça, né? Aí você vai falar, Control ANAC, 1, 2, 3, sei lá o quê. Se você errar, correction, correção, tá? Melhor coisa. Porque senão você vai soltar algo em inglês geral. Em inglês geral, better saying. Então, partes aí onde você está conversando com o avaliador, better saying funciona. Let me say it again. Sorry, I made a mistake. Let me go back. Tá? Várias opções aí. O AI aqui da Zoom está fazendo o apanhado todo, então ele vai ajudar depois a inteligência artificial vai ajudar com essas coisas. Depois eu vou mandar para vocês, tá? Do resumo inscrito de tudo isso. All right, let's go on to part 2. So part 2, interacting as a pilot. In this part of the test, basically, you're going to interact as if you are the pilot of ANAC 1, 2, 3. And I will talk a little bit about these situations and also how they connect to real-life problems for those who already passed the ICAO test. I have some students here that they passed the test already. Let me see if my captions are in English. Yes, they are. Okay, so in this part, I want you guys, if you are able to have a pen and paper on your hands, to take notes. I'll do the same here. I'll get my whiteboard, my computer's whiteboard. My calligraphy is not going to look very good, but we're going to go through these exercises together, okay? So let's go to the first one. In this part of the test, you are always the pilot of ANAC 1, 2, 3. The audios can be heard twice, but be careful. If you listen twice every time, they discount your grade a little bit nowadays, okay? Eles descontam sua nota pouco se você ouvir 2 vezes sempre, tá? Então, listen twice only when you think it's really important. All right, let's go to the first situation here. In this first one, imagine that you are, after boarding is finished and startup procedures as well, at Lisbon, Portugal. You're going to listen to the ATC and read back, okay? So pay attention to the ATC and take notes with me, guys. That's the ATC talking to us. We are at Lisbon. About this first instruction by the examiner, just the context, you don't need to necessarily get much. It's just where you are. Imagine the situation more than write it down. You can write down a little, but it's more important to just try to create that scenario in your head. All right, so imagine you just finished your boarding procedures, start up as well. You are at Lisbon, Portugal, listen to the ATC and read back. There he goes.
ANAC 1, 2, 3 Lisbon control. You are cleared to initiate taxi. Runway in use is 21. Taxi via Quebec. Turn left on Golf behind the 777 passing right in front of you. Then make a left again on Uniform.
Can you guys
then
hear
hold
it?
short position mic 5.
Can you
ANAC
guys hear
1,
it?
2, 3 Lisbon control.
I think it wasn't playing. Okay, sorry, Sarah. Thank you.
Não,
Okay.
estamos ouvindo sim.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, sorry. There he goes again then. So I'll play it again because I paused in the middle.
ANAC
There he goes.
1, 2, 3 Lisbon control. You are cleared to initiate taxi. Runway in use is 21. Taxi via Quebec. Turn left on Golf behind the 777 passing right in front of you. Then make a left again on Uniform. Then hold short position mic 5.
Okay, so in this case here, basically, you have to make the readback to the controller, right? Because the first audio of every exercise part 2 is for that. This is basically what you do. They say, you are somewhere listening to someone, pay attention and read back. That's how every exercise in part 2 starts, all right? So in this case, you would say something like, Roger, runway 21, taxi via Quebec, left on Golf 2, behind 777. Left on Uniform, hold short of mic 5, ANAC 1, 2, 3. All right. What I'm doing here is basically I'm saying back the instructions and I'm trying not to use regular grammarly coherent sentences. If you say Roger, Wilco means I will comply. So this is a phraseology jargon that you can use that can help you because it's going to make evident to the examiner that you are just replying to a message. So you are basically trying to say things in a triple C manner, I call it. Clear, concise, and complete. Okay, CCC, clear, concise, and complete. So in this case, what you say is, Wilco, runway 21, taxi via Quebec, left on Gulf 2, Gulf 2. Behind 777, left on uniform. Hold short, Mike 5. If you make a mistake, for instance, I said Gulf 2 instead of Gulf 2, punctuation mistake, you can say correction and start again. So let's say that I'll do that. Wilco, runway 21, clear taxi, taxi via Quebec, left on Gulf 2, correction, left on Gulf 2, behind 777, left on uniform, hold short of Mike 5. That's it. In the end, if you forget to use your punctuation, you can always say your call sign one more time. So ANAC 1, 2, 3. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes you say, hold short of Mike 5, and then you take a look at your notes. You don't have anything else to say. And you have to say ANAC 1, 2, 3, just to give the proper intonation to your sentence. Remember, this is an English test more than anything. All right, so then after that, the controller would tell you the continuation of the exercise, okay? So now imagine that you are on taxiway Gulf behind the Boeing 777, and you see hydraulic fluid leaking from its left main gear. Pass a message to the ATC explaining the situation and informing that you will hold position at Gulf 2, avoiding to taxi on contaminated pavement. Who wants to do that? Who's brave enough to give it a try? Anyone?
Let's
No
try
one.
it.
Yo, go ahead, Platts. You're awesome. Go ahead. Thank you.
What's the sentence again, just to recap?
Sure, I'll say it again. Imagine that you are on taxiway Gulf now behind the Boeing 777, and you see hydraulic fluid leaking from its main gear. Pass a message to the ATC explaining the situation and informing you will hold position at position Gulf 2 to avoid taxiing on contaminated pavement.
Okay, so Lisbon apron, NAC 1, 2, 3. I will maintain Gulf 2 position. I will hold position in this. Oh, sorry, correction. I will hold position at Gulf 2. I see a fluid leaking from the 777 that just passed in front of me.
Okay, good job. Could be better, but good job.
Yeah.
How can you make it better? Well, one thing for sure, you're probably a little nervous because there's a lot of people here. Simplify this message always to what you have to report and what you have to request. Because you're on the radio, on that specific interaction of every exercise in part 2, you can use report and request. Sometimes you might use perform as well. So 3 verbs, okay, guys? So you report what you want to say that happened, and you request what you need from the controller. Let me share my whiteboard here with you guys. Can you guys see that whiteboard that I'm writing on top of it now? Yeah. So in this case, basically, you want to report hydraulic leak. Yeah. Hydraulic leak. And from the aircraft ahead, right? So aircraft, oh, sorry, my calligraphy is not so good today. From the aircraft ahead. What else? You want to request to hold position or to say that you are holding position. So you could use perform as well. Hold position at Gulf 2, right? Is that it? Gulf 2. To avoid contaminated pavement can be used, but you can have that on your memory or you don't need it. It's because it's implied, right? You are holding position because of this. Obviously, you don't want to roll on contaminated pavement. So if you simplify it, Platts, instead of saying Lisbon ground control, just say control. Every exercise in the test, so then you don't lose fluency for trying to remember what the control was. If you can remember fast, you use it. If not, control and NAC 1, 2, 3. Reporting, always. You start like this. Control and NAC 1, 2, 3. Reporting, and then you make it very, very short, very clear what you have to say. Report the problem, or reporting is even better because we are in an English test. In phraseology, you wouldn't need to say reporting, but since we are in an English test, it's okay. So control and NAC 1, 2, 3. Reporting, hydraulic leak on the aircraft ahead. requesting to hold position at position Golf 2, ANAC 1, 2, 3. Simple as that. Now, the beauty of that strategy is that whenever you just report and request, you avoid many different verbs for every situation. Because if you have, let's say, a medical situation on board, you're going to say you have it. But if you are facing another situation, you're going to have to use a different verb, like you pass through bad weather. I'm passing through bad weather. The engine is catching fire. You know, you're going to have to use different verbs for explaining how a situation affects you. However, if you just report the situation, it is obviously what's happening to you because you reported. So you avoid having to make the choice of a verb. You just say, control ANAC 1, 2, 3, reporting. And then you can report whatever. Reporting bird strike, reporting hail strike, tail strike, laser strike, I don't know, whatever it is. Wing collision with another aircraft, ground collision, mid-air collision, tail strike, reporting hail, reporting. So you can report meteorological conditions. You can report problems with the aircraft. You can report problems with the passengers, communication problems, whatever. If you just report, it's simple. And then you request what you want from them. In this case, you just want to hold position. So you could just say holding position at Golf 2, and then you could say requesting instructions, requesting something that is generic, like instructions or support, okay? So that's the basis of your interaction in part 2 when you are between audios. Why between audios? Because the first audio is for you to read back. The examiner tells you where you are, listen to someone and read back. So that one is the one we did before. You just say, Roger, Wilco, and the instructions again. No problems with this one. Then they explain something happened. You now have to pass a message to the controller before listening to the next audio. And the next audio comes now replying to you. So pay attention to what they reply. Let's move on to their reply. Pay attention. I'm going to share my sound and keep my whiteboard over here. There he goes.
ANAC 1, 2, 3. Roger, maintain position Golf 2. Stand by for a service car to better assess the situation. Please confirm you believe there's oil leaking from the undercarriage of the aircraft right in front of you on taxiway Golf.
All right, so what would you guys say here? From the aircraft ahead on taxiway Golf, they understood, right? So in this case, A firm, yeah, A firm, ANAC 1, 2, 3, holding position Golf 2, standing by for service car. Wilco, or actually A firm is better here, so correction, A firm, oil leak from the landing gear of the aircraft ahead. Sometimes they might switch, they might think that the situation is happening to you. They have variables now on the ICAO test. They do have some exercises in which they duplicated the exercise and they made two different answers. So sometimes they understand on that situation, on the test, on the real test, sometimes they understand that the situation is happening to the aircraft ahead, like it was the case here, but sometimes they make a mistake and they understand it's happening to you. So they would say something like, ANAC 1, 2, 3, Roger, I understand you have an oil leak on your main right gear. Please confirm we have a service car moving to you on taxiway Golf. Always be careful with the taxiways as well. They might say a different taxiway as well. Okay, guys? All right, let's go to another one. So that would be the end of that exercise. But just think, go ahead.
Nesse caso, poderia corrigir ali que, tipo, não foi oil, foi hydraulic fluid.
Yes, you could. Was that the case? Sorry, maybe I was not paying attention to it.
Ela
You don't know what kind of leak it is. Yeah, she said oil, maybe. Then you could. Yeah, you could. But probably you don't know what kind of leak it is from your aircraft. So that's the kind of exercise that I think kind of opens up to possible variables here that perhaps they don't consider a mistake. If you think it's hydraulic fluid, or if you think it's oil, or if you think it's water or fuel, you don't know what it is. But yeah, you can do that, and it's probably better if you do it, because then you leave no margin as well. Okay, good. Next situation. But before that, they ask what happened. Okay, by the end of exercises now in part 2, they say what happened in this exercise, and then you have to explain. You say, well, what happened here was hydraulic leak or an oil leak. I don't know. I don't remember what it was. Sorry, it was. I'm losing my IQ level 6 now. Let me remember what it was. You just said it, but I said both things twice and then I missed it. Yeah, so in this case, hydraulic fluid leaking from its left gear. So be careful. Sometimes they might swap the vocabulary, like left gear, right gear, hydraulic fluid, fuel, or whatever, or oil. Yeah. So careful with all that. Then they say, what happened here? What did the controller say? Now, when you explain what happened, you try to keep it simple as well. Okay. You don't wanna make a very long, extensive explanation. If you already did everything well in the exercise, you don't have to say everything back. You can just say, well, the controller understood the message and gave me instructions, to which I reply. But if you made a mistake or if you forgot to mention something, now is the time for you to say it. So perhaps you forgot to say something, like perhaps you forgot to say Golf 2 position. I was holding on position Golf 2. Or perhaps you said, you wrongly said Foxtrot instead of Golf. And then now you can take this opportunity and say, well, in this situation, the controller understood the situation and told me to hold at position Golf 2. And by the way, I actually have to make a correction here. He's right, it's position Golf 2. So you can correct yourself here, but if it's not the case that you made a mistake or you forgot something, just say the controller understood and passed me some instructions, to which I reply, and that's good enough. They go to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, because part 2 has 5 exercises. I'm gonna play another one now, and I'm gonna get something for helicopters now. Let me see, or something that is, yeah, this one is very common for helicopters and airplanes. I actually selected already the ones that I think are that serves both. But this one is the type of exercise they play in the end of part 2 with a picture. It's a little harder because they don't tell you what happened, they show you what happened with a picture. So you do have to have the vocabulary because you cannot paraphrase a picture. Yeah. So let's start. Examiner starts telling you this. Captain, imagine that you are approaching to Guarulhos. On final approach to land visually on runway 09er right. You have the runway in sight 5 miles out. Listen to the tower and read back. Now, if you are taking notes here, it's better to take notes about the numbers. You don't have to necessarily take notes about Guarulhos, but take notes about runway 09er or runway 9, 5 miles out. Yeah, that's important. Okay, because usually when they give you pieces of information like that, they later actually want you to somehow use it. Okay, so now listen to what the controller says. Wait, I'm not sure if I'm sharing the audio. I'll take notes with you guys here as well. Okay, why am I not being able to share? Sorry, guys, taking a little while. And I'm doing what I tell you guys to do. When you are thinking, talk about it. It's like, sorry, guys, I'm trying to open up the file, etc. This is what you should do in English when you are at the test as well, and you have trouble to remember something, you're doing something. Talk about your process of thinking so you can actually not lose points in fluency. Okay, that's what I'm doing right now. All right, so now I'm going to take notes with you guys. I think, yeah, you're going to be able to hear it. And I'm going to take notes at the same time. Let's see if I do a good job here. So imagine you are approaching Guarulhos, same exercise that I just said, okay? Approaching to land on runway 09er right. You have the runway in sight 5 miles out. Listen to the tower and read back.
ANAC 123 Guarulhos Tower. Cancel 09er right and perform a sidestep maneuver to land on runway 09er left. Wind calm. Beware for birds reported at 1,000 feet.
So now I would say, Wilco, ANAC 123, sidestep from 09er right to 09er left. Wind calm, 1,000 feet, aware of birds at 1,000 feet. I say again, aware of birds at 1,000 feet, ANAC 123. Another type of correction you can make, you can say, I say again, you repeat whatever you're saying. I said 1,000 feet birds, kind of weird. It's because my notes, I took the number first. And then when I was saying, I accidentally said first 1,000. I use kilo for thousands. I think it's easier than adding a lot of zeros like this, because if you make a mistake with one of the zeros, you're going to say 10,000 maybe. So I prefer to use K for kilo. So I know it's 1,000. So if it's like 1,500, I would say something like this. I would write something like this. So in this case, Wilco, ANAC 123, switching runways, sidestep to runway 09er left, wind calm, aware of birds at 1,000 feet, ANAC 123. if you want to use the call sign in the end to punctuate, to make it clear you're finished. All right. Now, imagine that you have a situation like this one here, as you are on final approach. I'm going to show you guys with a picture. As I said, they now show you a situation and say that is what's happening to you on final approach. So now imagine you have a situation like this on final approach and pass a message to the controller. So who wants to do this one? Anyone? Just open the mic and do it. 5, 4, 3. That one's simple, guys. Come on.
Bora lá, bora lá.
Okay.
Bora lá, bora lá.
Okay, who's coming? And now is more than one. All right. I saw that Andrade is and go Andrade. Platts just did it, and he's my home base now.
All right.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. So I would report that ANAC Guerrero's Tower, ANAC 123, reporting a truck crossing the runway 09 left.
Good job. Good job. One thing you could say here also is you could use the technical vocabulary, runway incursion, not excursion. Excursion is when someone, goes out of the runway when using. Runway incursion in this case. Now, a curiosity here. Told you guys that I was going to talk about some mistakes that they make on the ICAO test now. Actually, not just now, for a while. Incursion is a situation like this, runway incursion. And it's the same as it is in Portuguese, right? Uma incursão de pista. You could say reporting truck on the runway going around. Not a problem, okay? It's okay. But if you say runway incursion, you are using technical vocabulary, so you could be a little better in terms of vocabulary. But of course, this is not just a simple matter of one exercise through the test, but the whole thing. Now, one thing that is interesting is that in the test, they also have situations in which they have the picture of a dog on a taxiway, and they explain to you that you have had a situation like this, and then the controller reads back as a runway incursion. I think that you have to say yes, because they actually make this mistake when they explain another exercise to us. There are feedbacks that are received in which they say, now imagine that a dog caused an incursion. There was a dog incursion on the taxiway, a dog incursion on the runway. Now, I don't know if you guys know that, but this is actually wrong. A dog on the runway is a runway obstruction. A dog on a taxiway is a taxiway obstruction. A dog is not an incursion. An incursion is actually when you have a human or a vehicle, driven by a human on a runway or a taxiway, then it's an incursion. So they use this vocabulary when they talk to you. So apparently they consider a dog on the runway or taxiway as an incursion, but it's not an incursion, okay? It's actually an obstruction. But I don't think you have to make the correction. Just so you know, the right word would be obstruction, okay, for FOD and for animals. All right. So if there's an alligator on the runway, it's going to be an obstruction. There's a cow, it's going to be an obstruction. If it's an animal, it's an obstruction, just like FOD, okay, FOD. All right. So now listen to what they reply and make a proper read back again. I'm going to share my whiteboard again so I can take notes with you guys. There it goes. Pay attention to what they reply. Okay, wait a second. I'm resuming the audio. There it goes.
Roger, ANAC 123, go around, maintain course 09 until reaching 4,500 feet, then turn left to fly radial 278 of Sierra Charlie Papa. VOR for a hold pattern at position Loman.
All right, that's longer. Did you guys do a good job over there? That one is harder. So if you want to listen to this one again, you just say control, say again. That's important, guys. You are not interacting as yourself, even when you ask to listen again. So you talk to the controller. You're interacting as the pilot. So you say control, say again. They play the audio again. Don't say anything other than that. Just say control, say again. Then listen again. I'll play it again just to confirm my notes, but I think I did a good job.
Roger, ANAC 123, go around, maintain course 09 until reaching 4,500 feet, then turn left to fly radial 278 of Sierra Charlie Papa. VOR for a hold pattern at position Loman.
Okay, so in this case, remember, you want to keep it simple. So use the word wilco. You're going to have to say a lot of instructions you will comply with, and you want to keep it simple. So wilco, ANAC 1, 2, 3, going around, course 095 until 4,000 feet, then left turn towards radio 278 of Sierra Charlie Papa VOR for a holding pattern at position Loman. All right. Interesting things here, guys. They do have position names in the test. Loman is one of them, and it's easy because it's actually a real position that at least existed. I don't know if it still exists in Guarulhos. Now the runway in Guarulhos is not 09er anymore, but in the exercise, it is still 09er. So they use name of positions in the test. If you don't get it, you can just say reporting for a holding pattern at the position. In this case, not reporting, sorry. It would be in left turn, radio 278 of Sierra Charlie Papa VOR for a holding pattern at the position. If you say a holding pattern at the position, it's fine. They consider it because they know that you don't have the situational awareness. In my opinion, this is another mistake they make in the test because quite honestly, they shouldn't use these words because you don't have the situational awareness. You don't have the charts. And sometimes you don't know what you missed because you missed it, right? The concept of missing is missing. So obviously, not necessarily you know what you missed. On the other hand, in the test, the audios are clear, like the ones that I'm playing now. I do have more difficult audios, and I saved one of them for the last exercise here. And there's I have two other exercises that I would like to cover with you guys. So let's go to another one here. Anyone wants to start this one and make the readback? Oh, who is here? Let me see. The Andrade did the last one. Platts did it already. Let me check. Gamitu is here as well. Who wants to do it? Anyone? I'll play the audio.
I can.
You can?
Yes.
Okay, good, Gamitu. So let's do it. So imagine that you are flying to Sacramento, complying with the arrival procedure. Listen to the controller and read back, okay?
Okay.
Everybody, there it goes. I'll take my notes here at the same time. There it goes.
ANAC 123, Sacramento approach. You are cleared to fly direct to position Sierra Mike Oscar. Maintain altitude of 3,500. Altimeter setting 1007. Report 10 miles out of the airfield.
Okay, Sacramento, ANAC 123. We are clear of flight direct position Sierra Mike Oscar and maintain 3,500 QNH 1007 and we'll report 10 nautical miles out. ANAC 123.
Good job. Good job. Well done. Nice. Now, imagine that during the approach, you spotted a situation like this one here, my friend. You have a situation like this one. Let me show you with the picture. And because of that, you have to pass a message explaining that this is at 12 o'clock, approximately 2 miles ahead. So you decided to deviate off course to the right to initiate a dogleg. Call Sacramento approach to explain the decision, informing the reason for your deviation and the approximate position of this object.
Okay, Sacramento, ANAC 123. We do have a hot air balloon roughly 2 nautical miles ahead of us. We need to avoid making a right turn. ANAC 123.
Well done. Well done. You said we do have. It's okay because you made a perfectly clear and correct sentence
Alex.
using grammar, but you could just say report as well. Yeah, who's asking me something?
No caso, como você tinha explicado no exemplo passado, da Runway Incursion, no caso tem a opção de falar Airfield Incursion, no caso desse balão. Tem essa expressão de falar Airfield.
No, you would actually, if it was, what you're trying to say would be an infringement. An airspace infringement, right? If it's like infringing on the airspace of an airport, that's what you mean, right? Porque você tá querendo dizer isso, né? Se ele fizer uma violação do espaço aéreo, né?
Sim.
Aí a gente usa o termo infringement. É possível que na prova ICAO, devido ao erro, por exemplo, da runway incursion by a dog, talvez eles usem outro termo, tipo airspace violation seria adequado também, mas termo técnico mais utilizado seria airspace infringement, tá? Infringement. Mas no caso aqui, a gente não tem nem muito contexto para ter certeza se esse balão devia ou não estar aqui, a gente só sabe que ele não foi alertado e tal. Então, nessas horas, segue mais a risca possível o que o avaliador está te pedindo, porque os exercícios, às vezes, a gente tende a ser mais criativo do que precisa, e aí abre margem para erros também, sabe? Então, se ele falou, reporta que ele está mais ou menos a 2 milhas e que você vai desviar para a direita, faz isso. Reporting hot air balloon 2 miles ahead, performing deviation to the right. Percebe que a estruturação da coisa aqui nessa nossa interação para explicar o que está na foto, ou explicar o que ele pediu para você explicar do problema, é simples, é reportar, solicitar, às vezes efetuar, tá? Então, reporting, requesting, quase sempre, às vezes performing, né? Então, aqui poderia usar, porque um desvio a gente decide fazer, a gente não precisa solicitar, né? A gente não vai esperar ele responder e vai bater no balão. Então, control ANAC 123, performing deviation to avoid hot air balloon, right turn, reporting hot air balloon in the vicinity. ANAC 123, requesting instructions, pode ser. Lembra, não tem o que solicitar? Solta um requesting instructions, requesting support, tá? Uma coisa aberta. Por quê? Porque senão o próximo áudio pode te dar uma coisa que não é o que você pediu, né? Então, a não ser que ele fale, peça tal coisa, ou que seja uma coisa muito óbvia, assim, né? Tipo, sei lá, você perdeu o motor na perna do vento. Obviamente você vai pousar, né? Na pista que estiver mais próxima ali do aeroporto e tal. Vai pedir prioridade se você estiver em aproximação e seu motor pegar fogo. Então, coisas mais óbvias, assim, você pode solicitar porque são evidentes. Mas se ele não deixar totalmente esclarecido o que você tem que solicitar, ou a situação não for tão nítida, você fala assim, requesting instructions, requesting support. Porque aí, senão você pede uma coisa que é diferenciada, o próximo áudio vai ter mais uma coisa para você corrigir. Porque eu já vi muitas vezes alunos fazerem esse erro, assim, tipo, principalmente nas primeiras aulas, antes de entenderem essa lógica, né? O cara faz olha esse áudio, aí ele inventa alguma coisa, tipo, so requesting to climb to altitude 3000, sei lá, a gente já estava em alguma altitude, não lembro. Mas vamos supor que não tivesse. So requesting to climb to flight level, I don't know, 100. O cara inventa um flight level, inventa alguma coisa. Aí é mais uma coisa que ele vai ter que corrigir no próximo áudio, porque quais são as chances do próximo áudio ter ido na linha que ele imaginou, né? Tá, então aqui, pay attention to what they reply.
ANAC 123, Sacramento approach. Roger about traffic, thank you for reporting. 15 degrees dogleg to your left-hand side acknowledged. Keep it tight to avoid infringement of military airspace. Do not overshoot radial 185 and maintain at least 2,500 feet of altitude. Report when you're back on direct course inbound.
Okay, so I'll do this one so that I can make it faster. I want to get to part 3 already. So in this case, you would say something like negative left turn deviation, correction, right turn deviation. The guy made a mistake here with the deviation he wanted to make, right? So negative left turn deviation, correction, right turn, aware of military airspace, maneuvering within radial 185 and 135, 2,500 feet, report back, direct course inbound. Little harder, right? On the test, it's not as hard, okay? I make my exercises harder than the ones in the test because one of my principles is you better be a soldier in a garden than a gardener in a war. I like this one. It's a principle of, the same of hard training, easy combat. We have a police pilot over here. I'm pretty sure he agrees with that. So yeah, try to make it harder on the way we train. In this case, you're asking if it was 4 or 5. Let me see. Paulo got note in the last one. Okay, sorry, I missed the chat here, Paulo. I don't know what you're talking about now. I think it was about the other exercise here. Finot. All right, so let's go to part 3. So I covered a few exercises here. Just one thing before we move on out of this one, guys. One thing about this exercise here, we actually had the guy saying the hot air balloon in the instruction that I gave initially. I said that you would be performing a dog leg. Dog leg is a vocabulary they've been using quite a lot in the test. Okay, dog leg. It's like a deviation basically. Usually it's the shortcut between 2 perpendicular legs, but it could be used also for a zigzag deviation. The concept of a dogleg is basically an ephemeral deviation you're going to make to avoid something, or a shortcut between two legs. Like if you're approaching to land at Santos Dumont runway 02, you're gonna see a lot of pilots making a dogleg from base to final because, you know, it's a very short approach. So a dogleg is when you actually make like a 45-degree turn, you make a shortcut between legs, okay? That's important as well. It's in the test all the time. All right, let's go to part 3. So in part 3, every audio is played twice. You have to listen, then explain the situations. Listen to the first one here, guys. There we go. It's going to be played twice, okay? In part 3, every audio is played twice.
Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. San Diego departure November 8th, 72 Bravo. Engine 2 is on fire. We need to return to the airport. Turning left towards the airport and maintaining current altitude of 1,200 feet.
872 Bravo, return at your discretion. Lost one of your engines? Emergency acknowledged. Keep turning towards the airport and land on runway 27.
He goes again.
Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. San Diego departure November 8th, 72 Bravo. Engine 2 is on fire. We need to return to the airport. Turning left towards the airport and maintaining current altitude of 1,200 feet.
872 Bravo, return at your discretion. Lost one of your engines? Emergency acknowledged. Keep turning towards the airport and land on runway 27.
All right, who wants to explain this one to me? Unmute yourself and just give it a try. Anyone?
I will try.
Okay, go ahead, Gamito.
Okay, here we have a Mayday situation. It's November 8th, 72 Bravo reporting for San Diego. Engine 2 fire, requesting a left turn towards the airport, and the pilot's maintaining 1,200 feet. And the tower acknowledge and understand the pilot got engine fire and instructed him to proceed direct towards the runway 27. Basically, that's it.
Good job. Basically, that's it. It's a very good expression to show that you're done with it. Good job. Towards, okay? Make the pronunciation of this word a little more clear. Towards, not towards, towards, yeah. Other than that, careful with 4 and 2 as well. You said they reported the situation for San Diego or something similar. 4 is when you are on behalf of someone. So they reported to San Diego. Think about the preposition to as an arrow, as a direction from one thing to the other, right? Like I'm going to the United States next Sunday, which is actually true. I'm going to go there. So going to is a direction. Talking to someone, you're talking, the other person is listening. Talking with someone is more like a dialogue. Okay. Talking for someone, you're talking on behalf of someone. So when you report, in this case, they are reporting to San Diego, right? They are reporting to San Diego departure. All right. But if you want to save some trouble, you could just say things in a way that still resembles what we practiced for part 2. You could say, well, in this situation, there was a situation of fire on the engine 2, and the controller misunderstood as if they lost both engines. In more details, the plane was November 872 Bravo. They reported engine 2 on fire, requesting return to the airport, turning left towards the airport, maintain current altitude 1,200. After that, the controller gave instructions. These were the instructions: return at discretion, lost your 2 engines, emergency acknowledged, keep turning towards the airport, land on runway 27. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm quoting what they said. So you explain things first, like what happened was basically this. And then after you gave a sort of a generic explanation, you start saying which one of them said. Like this one said this, he also replied, then the controller gave the following instructions. And this, that, and that. That simplifies your task here, because you're going to have to do you're going to have to rearrange the sentences. That's what we call reported speech in English, okay? In Portuguese would be discurso indireto. Discurso indireto você fala, o fulano disse que o ciclano disse para o fulano, para o outro. Então você está falando o que o outro diz para o outro. Você tem que ficar fazendo ajustes gramaticais o tempo todo. Nessa parte da
Sempre em
prova...
passado, né?
De maneira geral, aqui você está falando de uma situação que você ouviu, então ela aconteceu, né? Então, até daria talvez para você falar, né? Eu entendi que o avião está tendo um problema com... Você poderia talvez colocar no gerúndio, em algum sentido, mas o normal mesmo é usar no passado, né? O cara teve o problema tal. Então, se você fizer esse reporte, pensando em português agora mesmo, só para ficar clara essa estratégia de citação, porque ela seria equivalente em português e inglês, a dificuldade é muito maior se eu falo, por exemplo, aqui nesse exercício, tá? Essa é uma dica valiosa de parte 3. Eu fiz essa estratégia há relativamente pouco tempo. Pensem que eu já estou dando aula há 10 anos, né? Vai fazer 10 anos no final desse ano que eu comecei a Vector. Eu comecei a dar aula um pouco antes, claro, que eu dava aula para uns amigos meus, ainda enquanto eu estava voando de carteira assinada e tal. Então, vamos lá. Por exemplo, aqui. Se você tivesse que explicar tudo isso aqui em reported speech, você vai falar the pilot declared Mayday, Mayday, Mayday on the radio to San Diego departure. It was the pilot of November 872 Bravo. And they said that the engine 2 of the aircraft was on fire and they needed to return to the airport. Viu quantos ajustes eu tive que fazer aqui? Né? And they said that they needed to return to the airport. Então tem que trocar um pronome, tem que trocar um verbo, passado e tal. Se eu citar, olha como vai ficar mais fácil, né? Eu falei que ia fazer em português e fiz em inglês, né? Mas tudo bem, vou fazer em inglês de novo. Então aqui, por exemplo, so the pilot had a problem, they communicated with the controller, they had to land, the controller misunderstood the situation a little bit. In more details, the pilot first said, Mayday, 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 San Diego departure, November 872 Bravo, engine 2 on fire, we need to return to the airport. Eu repito o que ele disse porque eu dou uma introdução, o piloto disse tal coisa. Então eu primeiro falo o que aconteceu de maneira mais assim, genérica, e depois o cara disse isso, o outro disse aquilo. Isso facilita o meu trabalho do ponto de vista gramatical, entendeu? Então essa é uma estratégia que você pode usar ela, obviamente, de maneira cautelosa, para que você não faça só isso também, porque o avaliador nessa parte ele quer ver você ter a capacidade gramatical de modular aqui o discurso, tá? Mas modula para dar uma pincelada mais genérica, né? Em inglês a gente chama isso, inclusive, de to paint with a broad brush, pintar com um pincel largo, né? To paint it with a broad brush, you just say things in regular English and making this reported speech, but then later you just say, in more details, the pilot declared emergency, engine 2 on fire, he said returning to the airport, making a left turn, and maintaining 1,200. After that, the controller said, return at discretion, emergency acknowledged, but they understood they lost both engines. They made a mistake. That's an important thing here, guys. There are exercises in part 3 like this one here that they make mistakes, okay? So mistakes are not only in part 2 anymore. They're also in part 3, okay? Galera, vou passar para mais um exercício aqui. O tempo está sendo bem mais curto do que eu imaginei. Estou levando mais tempo do que eu achava. Está passando muito rápido. Então, vou pegar mais um exercício aqui de parte 2, de parte 3. E vou pegar um de helicóptero. Tem galera do helicóptero ainda aqui, ó. Eu acho que tem... Vamos lá, vamos pegar um de helicóptero aqui. Mas esse daqui acho que é ambivalente. Ele é de helicóptero, mas por pouca coisa. Todo mundo vai entender esse daqui. Apesar, não é nada... Tem uns de main gearbox agora, de helicóptero. Eu vou cobrir no final, que tem mais caído de cada uma, como eu prometi, tá? Então, vamos lá. Pay attention to this audio, guys. There it goes. 1, 2, 3, go.
3, 2, Tango Whiskey. Clear to take off. Runway 26.
Tango Whiskey clear to take off. Runway 26. Tower, Tango Whiskey aborted running takeoff due to obstruction. There's a dog on the runway. We are holding position near Delta.
Roger, Tango Whiskey. Rejected takeoff due to dog on the runway, vacate on delta and contact ground on 120.50, or remain in position if you have intentions and performance to take off from present position after we clear the runway. 3, 2, Tango Whiskey, clear to take off, runway 26.
Tango Whiskey clear to take off, runway 26. Tower, Tango Whiskey aborted running takeoff due to obstruction. There's a dog on the runway. We are holding position near Delta.
Roger, Tango Whiskey, rejected takeoff due to dog on the runway, vacate on delta and contact ground on 120.50, or remain in position if you have intentions and performance to take off from present position after we clear the runway.
Okay. So this one here, basically the tower cleared the aircraft. 3-2 Tango Whiskey. If you get the call sign, you use it. If you don't, it doesn't really matter that much. Let me show you guys my notes here. I did take notes for that one with you guys. All right, so 3-2 Tango Whiskey, clear the takeoff, runway 26. So if I have to explain it, I don't just say it. I say, in this audio, the helicopter 3 Tango Whiskey was cleared to take off on runway 26, but they had to abort this running takeoff. He mentioned a running takeoff due to an obstruction by a dog. The controller understood that they rejected takeoff due to a dog on the runway and told them to vacate on Delta, but I'm not seeing now because of the chat. Okay, to vacate on Delta and to contact 120.5 or to remain in position waiting for takeoff from present position after they cleared the runway. So that was the situation here. Okay, that one is actually a helicopter situation only because they mentioned a running takeoff. Yeah, but it could happen to an airplane. As a matter of fact, I think it's more common to happen to an airplane because helicopters many times they don't use much runway. And all right, now let's go to part 4, because I am wasting too much time here, guys, and I want to talk a little bit about the situations that they've been using after all. So who wants to try to describe a picture here to me, or should I describe it first? Maybe let's do the following. I think I didn't have anyone from the helicopters interacting. So I'm asking a helicopter pilot later to describe the helicopter one. I'll describe this airplane picture here, and then someone else describes the helicopter picture. All right, so they ask you to describe the picture. Initially, that's only what they say. They say, please describe what you see here in this picture. All right, so in this picture here, I see an aircraft having a severe problem with fire on the left engine. The emergency services are already providing assistance. The yellow truck we see on the left side of the picture is dousing the left engine of the aircraft with a lot of water or maybe some other type of fire extinguishing liquid. We can see a lot of smoke, and the smoke is blowing to the other side of the aircraft. So that's why I suppose we see that the escape slides were deployed on the side that they don't have a fire, except for the one on the tail. There's a escape slide on that side of the aircraft on the tail, but the other two that we see deployed are to the other side. However, the smoke is probably making very hard for people to keep walking on that direction. So I guess that they are circling around through the back. So in one side we have fire, the other one smoke. And yeah, that's what I see here. Apparently, this is a wide body aircraft, I think. Yeah, it's a 777. And that's what I see here. That's the situation. All right, as you guys can see, I just talk about the picture. Like, think about it. You might want to have a script, but you don't want to sound scripted, right? So because my English level is sufficient, I just think like, what am I going to talk about? Well, address first what's obvious. There's something happening, you know, don't be shy to talk about it. Just mention the situation itself. And after a while, you don't have anything else to say, just wrap it up. If you didn't speak for a, you know, let's say at least 30 seconds, you feel like it's too short, perhaps you can describe things a little more physically, but then you say it, you say, well, I'm going to describe things a little more literally now. I'm gonna say if that's not the intention, you let me know. I think that perhaps this is not the intention of this description part. Then you have this conversation with the examiner, okay? All right. Now, one of the most important things that I wanted to address about the pictures are actually the statements, okay? Questions are usually what happened before the picture was taken, what happened afterwards, but the statements are a little difficult sometimes. They have very weird words in some cases. So in this case here, I'm gonna read a statement, then I want one of you guys to tell me if you agree or disagree with it, okay? There goes the statement. The captain of a flight is responsible for the safety of all passengers and cargo from boarding to the boarding. However, sometimes passengers may also be held accountable for their own safety. Agree or disagree, anyone?
Sorry, say again.
Okay, there it goes again. The captain of a flight is responsible for the safety of all passengers and cargo from boarding to deboarding. However, sometimes passengers may also be held accountable for their own safety. So,
all right, can I try?
Agree?
yeah, give it a try, Vinicius, go ahead.
All right, so I totally agree with this statement. The captain has the responsibility for the passengers on board, but it's very important for the passenger to pay attention to the instructions that the crew
Speak a little
member.
slower.
The,
for the passengers to pay attention. You wait that to pay attention. You said it's very important for passengers pay attention.
For the passenger pay attention, the instructions that the flight attendant will give to avoid problems during the board procedure. That's it.
Okay. One important thing, pay attention is always pay attention to, okay? That's a very common mistake. Sometimes people say, pay attention, the problem, pay attention for, pay attention about. It's pay attention to, always, okay? So it's important for the passengers to pay attention to. A lot of prepositions here. So good job. I would totally agree with that statement as well. And one thing you can do when you agree with the statements, which is the majority of the cases, you're gonna, most of the statements are agreeable. One of the things you can do is you can say that you fully agree or totally agree or partially agree. And if you fully agree, just keep saying that in different words. Let me show you how. You can say, well, I fully agree with that statement. As a matter of fact, it's a little hard to go beyond what this statement said already. It's a very complete and logical statement, makes complete sense. So I might sound a little repetitive, but basically, sometimes passengers may not follow the rules and the instructions they received. And in cases like this, I believe, yes, they can be held accountable for their own safety. So you see, most part of my statement, most part of my argument, I was just saying how good the argument of the statement was. It's very logical. It makes complete sense. I think it's a little hard for me to go beyond. Stuff like that may help, okay? So I'm going to give you guys that on the file that I'll send you later about this as well. Now, any helicopter pilot still here? Because that is like passing the time already. It was supposed to be until 9:15, so I understand people are sometimes leaving. Let me see. Helicopter pilots, don't bail on me.
I can give it a try.
All right, Sarago, let's do it. How are you doing, man? Doing good? Are you well? How's your baby? I know you just had a baby.
Yeah, she was crying a lot. That's why I asked you before to repeat the sentence because I wasn't listening. So
got it.
Now she's trying to sleep now.
All right, good. So go ahead, describe this picture here to me. Tell me what you see and what you think has happened here.
Okay, in this picture, I see a squirrel. It's a type of helicopter. It's a AS 50. Think that I can see that the aircraft has been in a eventual of a bird strike and probably land, and I see the both windshields are broke, and seems like everyone made out of the aircraft may be fine, maybe a small injuries, and I can see a bird that is on the right side of the helicopter. that broke the nose a little bit. A little bit, not sorry, a lot. And he probably asked for the control for making an emergency landing. And the blades are fine. I think only get the windshield and the nose.
Okay. All right. Let me give you some corrections here, Sarago. You said and probably land, you meant and probably landed in the past, right? As a verb. Land is the land, like a noun. Another one you said, the windshield is broke. You know the difference between broke and broken? Broke is also an adjective, but broke is like, I am broke means that I'm without any money. I have no money. Broke as an adjective, usually that's the meaning we use. This is, I am broke, she is broke, we are broke. So broke has this meaning related to being broke financially. Broken is the verb is the adjective that you wanted. The helicopter is broken, or the windshields are broken with an N in the end, okay? So that would be the adjective from the idea of, to break something, that derives from the verb of breaking, yeah? And that's it. In the end, you said, and I think they only got, apparently the birds only got the radome or the chin bubble. Yeah, they didn't get to the, so didn't get, or I don't believe the birds got, then you would say got, the past, right? Didn't get, you would say get, because didn't is before as a supplementary verb. But you did well. You did well. I'm giving you some tiny corrections. I believe they could only compromise maybe level 5 if the examiner is excessively detailist, and they are sometimes, but you did well. Now let me ask you guys, and if you are still there, you can do it yourself. I don't know if you're having to deal with your baby over there and stuff, but I'm gonna read the statement here. But the questions are usually all the same. What do you think happened before this picture was taken, after this picture was taken? And how would you handle a situation like that? So I'm gonna skip those because we are past time already. Statement, there it goes. There has been a substantial increase to the amount of birds near airports in recent years due to the consequences of environmental changes. Agree or disagree, and why?
I agree.
Okay, can you
Because
elaborate a little? Yeah.
yeah, I agree, because the environment is getting, how can I say, the cities are getting very large with a lot of people, and sometimes because of the airports are placed in a flatland area, the garbage is sometimes near the airports. So the places that has garbage always have a lot of birds.
All right.
I
Good.
think
Good job.
there's a
Waste
good way to
deposit
explain.
areas. You could call them landfills if you want. Landfills, aterros. So due to the the presence of many sanitary plants or landfills, waste deposit areas. So the urban areas, they basically attract a lot of birds, large birds like vultures. Yeah. So I agree with the statement. It makes total sense. And then all the sentences you can use for agreeing. I agree with the statement. It makes complete sense. It's a very logical statement. All right, guys, I want to close this up. I want to wrap it up because it's been more time than I thought it would be. It's already 9:31. I thought I would be faster. And let's debrief about all this in Portuguese here. Anyone has anything to say, a doubt, a question about anything? Se tiver dúvida, pode mandar, a gente fala em português agora aí. Diga aí.
A questão que eu vi das abreviações, eu tenho muita dificuldade em anotar enquanto eu estou ouvindo. Enquanto eu estou anotando, e eu perdi o próximo áudio que eu estou ouvindo. Eu vi que tu colocou 2 abreviações já no começo, antes de começar a anotar. Tem uma técnica de que a gente pode já deixar pré-anotado antes da gente começar a ouvir?
Tem. Pré-anotado eu não diria. Ali eu fiz uma indicação do reporting e requesting, né? Do RP e o RQ. Eu, na verdade,
Isso.
nem anoto, porque eu já tenho uma ideia de que durante o áudio, em algum momento eu vou anotar o que vai ser reportado, o que eu vou reportar e o que eu vou solicitar. Mas ali era numa interação onde eu ia falar depois da instrução do avaliador, né? A interação onde normalmente você vai ter dificuldade para anotar é a que você está ouvindo o áudio, não a que o avaliador te diz o que você tem que fazer, tá? Ali, essa que você está se referindo era uma que o avaliador diria para mim o que eu tenho que solicitar e o que aconteceu. Então, eu não estaria anotando um áudio. Ali eu estaria anotando, tipo, o que meu avaliador está pedindo para eu fazer antes de ouvir o segundo áudio, tá? Lembrando aqui a estrutura do exercício da parte 2, você ouve o primeiro áudio e coteja. Depois o avaliador te fala, ó, deu uma pane tal, você tem que passar uma mensagem explicando, solicitando tal. Aí nessa ali é que eu estava anotando já o que eu ia reportar e o que eu ia solicitar, report request, tá?
Certo. Ainda sobre a parte 2, a ordem do afirmativo ou negativo importa? Por exemplo, o controlador entendeu que eu pedi, como é que fala? Me instruiu para virar à direita, autorizou o pouso e depois ele perguntou para me confirmar o problema. Eu falo no começo ou na mesma ordem que o controlador? Tipo, eu
Não,
primeiro cotejo.
eles não vão se importar com a ordem, tá? A
Aham.
parte como, assim, aquela coisa que baliza o teste. Seu conhecimento aeronáutico tem relevância até certo ponto, mas o mais importante é seu inglês. Então, isso não vai ser relevante. Na fraseologia, salvo engano, você deve começar pelo que é mais relevante. Então, por um equívoco, por exemplo, já mencionar ele, tá? Salvo engano. Mas isso dá para verificar depois num documento ali da FAA que eu tenho e da ICAO. Mas, de toda maneira, na prova ICAO isso não vai ser relevante. A gente usa a fraseologia para ela ajudar a gente, não usa ela para te atrapalhar também. Fica, não, eu tenho que fazer igual, tá? Para a prova, o que ele quer é que você corrija o que tem que ser corrigido, coteja o que tem que ser cotejado, entendeu? Nessa parte. Então, a ordem que você faz não tem relevância. Quanto às abreviações e as anotações, eu estava te respondendo ali que aquela hora era só a abreviação realmente da instrução que o avaliador te dá, né? Mas quando for do áudio, o comandante, a principal coisa que você tem que fazer, cara, para ser melhor em ouvir e anotar, obviamente é treinar, é praticar, tá? Dá para fazer isso hoje em dia com sistemas até de inteligência artificial, pedindo para ele lerem texto e você ir anotando e tal, ler descrição de acidente. Eu posso depois fazer um vídeo atualizado sobre isso, que eu tenho um antigo no meu canal do YouTube. Mas, de certa forma, o principal é você criar um sistema de abreviação que funcione para você. Eu, por exemplo, procuro usar letra cursiva, né? Eu vou partilhar aqui minha lousa. Eu procuro usar a letra cursiva, que não é algo muito habitual para mim quando eu estou escrevendo normalmente. Deixa eu partilhar aqui. Então, por exemplo, se você olhar as minhas anotações, você vai ver que quando eu anoto rápido, eu tento fazer, por exemplo, um aircraft assim, ó. Não chega nem a ser cursivo isso aqui, né? Que o cursivo seria assim, né? Minha filha escreveria assim, ó, aircraft, tá? Então, a primeira coisa, você não quer colocar muita vogal, porque vogal são só 5. Você consegue lembrar a vogal, né? Você consegue deduzir qual a vogal que você tirou. Então você quer focar nas consoantes. Outra coisa, procura colocar a primeira letra maiúscula ou grande, meramente, porque você sabe onde começa e termina uma palavra. Porque quanto mais você tentar escrever com menos letra, né? Por exemplo, você pega aqui, deixa eu pegar alguma coisa que já esteja feita aqui, vai. Sei lá, aqui, ó. Você vê, eu quase não pego vogal, ó. 32, aqui era o call sign dele, não é relevante. The aircraft, você pode chamar de the aircraft. Was clear to take off, runway 26, then reported and obstructed, there was a dog obstructing the runway. Then the controller understood, they acknowledged that they rejected the takeoff due to a dog on the runway and told them to vacate on Delta and to contact frequency 120.5 or remain in position. Então percebe que, por exemplo, quando eu escrevo remain dessa forma aqui, ó, que está aqui, percebe que eu fiz um remain de uma vez só, assim, ó, com pouquíssimos traços, ó, 1, 2, 3. Isso aqui poupa muito tempo do que você fazer assim, ó.
Uhum.
Ó, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Então, você escrever mais rápido com a letra mais cursiva, ou com a letra pelo menos conectada, ajuda. Você evitar consoante ajuda. Às vezes, tem uma dicotomia interessante aqui. Quanto menos você anota, menos você precisa anotar também. Porque você está prestando atenção no áudio e filtrando e anotando só aquilo que você vai precisar lembrar de fato, tipo um número, uma frequência. Se você começa a tentar anotar todas as palavras, cara, você vai precisar muito que sua anotação funcione, porque você não está prestando atenção em nada, porque você está anotando. E o que
Eu estou
acontece?
procurando símbolos também, por exemplo, clear
Então,
to
símbolo
take
ajuda
off,
muito.
eu
Eu uso
coloco um
muito
C e
esse
uma setinha para
isso.
cima,
Perfeito. Cada
na
um, por isso que eu digo,
diagonal.
você tem que criar a sua simbologia, porque, por exemplo, o que funciona para mim, talvez não vá funcionar para você. O que funciona para mim porque eu criei para mim, entendeu? Então, por exemplo, eu uso
Perfeito.
essa seta aqui para mim, ela significa uma direção, vai para algum lugar. O de manter para mim é um traço longo. Então, isso aqui é mantém 3,500. Para alguém, isso aqui pode não fazer nenhum sentido. Para mim, faz. A lógica pelo qual eu cheguei nas minhas coisas, ela existe, mas ela é um pouco individualizada mesmo. E aí, como é que você vai criar o seu sistema? Bom, eu posso te dar as dicas que fizeram eu criar o meu, né? As dicas que eu posso te dar que fizeram eu criar o meu e que ajudam alunos meus a criar os deles são essas. Pode reparar que eu tento usar a letra grande no começo de uma palavra, por quê? Porque como eu escrevo poucas letras de cada palavra, eu quero saber onde começa uma e termina a outra. Então, usa ponto, usa ponto, usa barra quando tem coisas que são conectáveis. Por exemplo, você vai escrever take off, né? Em tese, sei lá, a palavra como take off, escrita normalmente, seria isso aqui, né? O verbo, que aí tem duas palavras, né? Que é um verbo composto, né? Um verbo é um phrasal verb, né? Então aqui take off seria assim, mas se eu for escrever, pô, em letra cursiva já é mais rápido, ou letra mais ou menos cursiva, você já faz uma bagunça aqui assim, ó, pronto, take off, já ficou mais simples. Mas se você pegar e só fizer isso aqui, ó, não dá para saber que é take off? São duas
Sim.
letras maiúsculas separadas por uma barra, é que nem quando eu faço flight attendant. Eu sei que é flight attendant. Se for landing, eu vou fazer LD e um ponto, entendeu? Porque já
LDG, um landing gear.
e se for landing gear, eu já faço um GR assim rápido, que eu sei que isso aqui é um GR. Quem entende que isso aqui é um GR? Só eu preciso empreender. Eu não preciso jogar isso aqui num quadro para ninguém. Para mim tá bom, isso aqui funciona. Então, às vezes, você separar com ponto ou com barra duas coisas que se conectam, duas palavras que estão juntas, e evitar ter que escrever, por exemplo, take off, só pôr um T e aí o off, por exemplo, vai funcionar. Então, é fazer símbolo. Uma que eu tive dificuldade para abreviar foi fire. Porque Fire eu não consigo escrever rápido. Quando eu fazia escrito, eu fazia assim, ficava estranho. Aí eu comecei a fazer esse desenho aqui, ó. Fire. É uma pata de caranguejo. Isso aqui é Fire para mim. Teve uma aluna minha
Top.
que fez uma vez que ela fez um coração assim para um heart attack. Ela fez um coração e traçou em cima. Então, assim, o sistema que você cria pode ser vários. Você pode criar ele a partir de texto, cara. A melhor coisa. Pega texto no AV Herald e vai transmutando aquele texto para um monte de abreviação que depois você olha e lembra do que você leu. Isso é uma técnica boa porque você não se coloca a pressão do áudio antes, entendeu? Você começa abreviando o texto. Então, você pega um texto lá que descreve um acidente qualquer no AV Herald, na internet, no NTSB, lá, né? Tem muitos arquivos. No meu site, lá na área de estudo, eu deixo vários links para sites bons de fazer isso. Aí você pega e abrevia, faz o seu sistema de abreviação, entendeu? E aí sublinha aquilo, se você quiser áudio, e manda o Copilot, manda uma inteligência artificial, se tiver no celular, é aquele Gemini, manda ler aquilo em voz alta e vai tentando anotar. Mas é isso que eu falei, como princípio, lembra do seguinte, você quer tentar anotar pouco, ouvir, prestar atenção e anotar pouco. Você anota pouco porque você ouve e sabe o que é. Aí você lembra. Galera, é isso. Vou lá, porque já são 9h40. Espero que vocês tenham gostado. Não tenho nada para vender para vocês. Eu não sou nenhum, como é que chama hoje em dia, lançador de conteúdo, que segue aquele monte de fórmula e tal. Eu vou ter sim algo para vender para vocês no futuro que vai se aproximar desses moldes aqui. Esse foi um evento realmente de agradecimento há tantos anos aí. A Vector faz 10 anos esse ano e eu queria, de fato, entregar aí uma aula para vocês, um seminário. Peço desculpas se tive alguma falha técnica aqui e ali, ou se a coisa ficou um pouco menos estruturada do que vocês antecipavam. Eu estou trabalhando sozinho aqui, não ia ser o caso, mas acabou sendo. E aí consegui dar meu jeito aqui, fazer uma aula sobre a prova ICAO inteira. Queria ter feito um pouco mais aqui, acabou o tempo correndo mais rápido do que eu imaginava. Mas é isso, eu quando dou aula, às vezes acabo me empolgando ali, passando o máximo de conteúdo que eu consigo. E espero que vocês tenham um ótimo ano. Se tiverem alguma dúvida aí para mim, para falar, obrigado aí pelas palmas ali, quem mandou. Acho que foi o Gamito. E obrigado pela participação. Valeu, Márcio. Valeu todo mundo aí que está presente. Saragô, que tem filho pequeno, pessoal aí todo. Ederley Alcântara, Gamito, Platz. Tem muita gente aí, Antônio, o Ricardo Finoto já saiu agora, porque está tarde também. Mas é isso, pessoal. Então, mais para frente eu mando mais mensagens para vocês conforme a gente for fazendo mais eventos. Eu quero fazer uns eventos também um pouco menos focados na prova ICAO e na coisa da conversação, uma aula, de repente, se vocês quiserem mandar sugestões, podem mandar. Eu posso mandar um formulário de feedback, vocês mandem sugestões, para fazer aulas interativas em grupo, assim, que eu acho que é um projeto que dá para fazer interessante. Eu preciso do feedback de vocês, saber como é que foi. E ver também o quanto tem de tração, né, para fazer esse tipo de projeto, porque se isso der certo, eu acho que pode ser um serviço a se pensar também de fazer algumas aulas toda semana ou a cada 2 semanas, assim, para o pessoal participar em um grupo de estudos. Então, agradeço a todo mundo, agradeço a presença, muito obrigado aí. E é isso. Grande abraço a todos. Valeu.
Obrigado, pô. Valeu.
Obrigado.
Valeu, abraço aí, até.
Valeu.
Vamos renovar o ICAO.
Abraço.
Valeu.
Abraço.
Valeu, pessoal. Grande abraço.
Tchau, obrigado.
Valeu. Boa.